You may have seen me taking on the one known as Graymarrow before, however it turns out that there's a much easier way of getting to him, taking much less time without the hassle of combating many waves of skeletons, each coloured requiring a specific light to reveal them. You may not receive a treasury of many goods including the fabled chest of legends, but at least you'll be able to say that you took him on and hopefully you beat him. I'm Captain Daddy and join me as we make our way into the final steps of reaching the shores of gold. My next destination was a rather unusual one for this tale, as I was required to visit the ferryman on board the Ferry of the Damned, so I climbed to the top of the outpost at Galleon's grave and jumped off.
Hey, you're finally awake.
Such a quick and easy destination, honestly, compared to the amount of sailing I had done before, but now was the time to discuss with him whatever he had planned for me. I was told that, like Rose and George from one of the previous tales, these crewmates of the Morning Star had been cursed and needed their souls to be freed. However, their journey was also for that of the Shroudbreaker and its gems, and their path should lead me to the final one. Before all of this, however, I had to make my way over to Kraken's Fall and discover the crypt of the ferryman, where he left some items in which I required to follow these pirates. Upon digging underneath the tree at the peak of the island, I had found it, however this took quite some time to dig it up. Inside was an enchanted lantern, and I wasn't overly sure what I was supposed to be doing with it, so I walked all around Kraken's Fall more, holding it up as nothing happened. After much longer, I returned to looking through the journal I was given, only to find out that I was supposed to be looking for signs on the south coast of Old Fateful Isle for the pirates known as Dinger, Fontaine, and Captain Slate. Another long sail later, I was now heading out towards the island, and once I had arrived, it did not take long for me to discover fragments of the past through the enchanted lantern. I saw a rowboat holding some treasure, followed by skeletons on the chase, leading me to a campfire where the crew of the Morning Star were when they were made to flee for their lives. They each ran in different directions, and this then had me following each of the footsteps one at a time, following them each to their deaths while seeing skeletons putting their souls into chests. From then I followed two more footprints, one dragging along the chest which led me to where it was buried, and the other to a key to unlock them. However, these keys were thrown off cliffs and fired off cannons. Finally though, after finding them floating in the sea, all of these had been retrieved, and opening each one, their souls had now been freed, and all of them were grateful, telling me to meet them back on board the ferry. I did exactly that, making my way to the Ferry of the Damned as the Morning Star crew all thanked me, and the ferryman told me that my next destination would be to meet up with the shipwright over at Daggertooth Outpost. So with that, I left them to board the Red Beard and set sail to meet up with Sandra. Speaking to her, she told me about tales of the Morning Star and how their final voyage met its end by none other than Graymarrow. And if I wanted the final gem of the Shroudbreaker, I would have to hunt him down. But this would not be a short task, of course. As I had already taken on the ghost of Graymarrow once during this journey, I was not afraid to take him on again. However, my journey towards my destination was rudely interrupted by an unwanted skeleton ship. I was not messing around now, however, as I felt so close to reaching the shores of gold and I held nothing back. Firing my cannons into their broadside, giving them no room to breathe until finally they had sunk and I enjoyed all of the treasure that rose up to the surface. I arrived at the island, diving beneath the waves to receive notes hidden within a shipwreck regarding something buried on the island. Upon getting on land and digging where these notes describe, I had found none other than the uniform of the Morning Star crew, which was abandoned during their encounter with Graymarrow and left for another. as the notes told that wearing this uniform would mean Tracy from Sanctuary Outpost would trust me, believing that I was a member of their crew. I got on board my ship and quickly changed into this new outfit, which didn't look terrible on me, before then sailing out to the outpost to meet inside the tavern with Tracy, and hopefully finding this missing gem. She wasn't much help though, however, other than telling me to go and speak to the local tailor, Tyler, which ended up being harder than expected as now I had to understand his ramblings. However, before long, I realised I now had to head to both Cannon Cove and Sunken Grove. What I was looking for, I was not so sure, but for now, I made my way over to Cannon Cove, which, once I reached the island and wandered around, I soon found a skeleton captain and his goons. After some quick hacking and slashing, he was beaten and dropped a note written in what I can only imagine is skeleton talk. Inside the journal I had was a way to decipher all of this, and after a painstaking amount of time, I had finally worked it out, digging up and receiving a strange looking skull. Once back on board, I was now having to sail far away to Sunken Grove to do exactly the same, and once I was there after taking out another skeleton captain, I was now following more notes which led me to digging up a rather interesting looking chalice. After a while of being unsure what to do, I had noticed that in each riddle shown in the journal, there was a number and letter, R in the first and 12 in the second. Looking at the map whilst checking at these coordinates made me believe that my next destination would be Kraken's Fall. I sailed towards this destination, through storms and battling against the waves, not realising that I was making my way towards a battlefield. I finally made it through the seas, arriving at the island and slowly heading towards this final face-off. On the island, I found a strange altar with room for 2 items, which didn't take a genius to work out this is what I was here for. So I placed both the skull and the chalice on here, not realising that I had just completed a summoning ritual, and from the ground rose none other than Graymarrow himself. He spoke of the Morning Star and how they feared him so much that one jumped off their ship, abandoning the rest of their crew as the others tried to sail away, and he was expecting me to meet the same fate. I was not going to let this happen, however, and whilst he carried on with his dialogue, I decided that it was time to let my sword do the talking. Back and forth we went as he raised more skeletons from the ground, and constantly firing at me with both his flintlock and blunderbuss. But I was not going to let him taste victory today, and to avenge the crew of the Morning Star, I slashed my way through him until finally, his body gave up and he crumbled as I had beaten this monster. Awaiting me at the feet of my foe was none other than the final gem which I needed for the Shroud Breaker, and now all I had to do was sail back to Daggertooth Outpost and hand over this to Sandra. Upon my return, Sandra was in complete shock to learn that I had defeated Graymarrow, confessing to me that she was the last member of the Morning Star who abandoned ship and has regretted it every day. But all I needed was to hand over the gem and meet up with the stranger outside Morrow's Peak Outpost for my final journey towards the shores of gold. That's all for this tale, and if you've enjoyed it, be sure to check out my Twitch where you can catch more of my journeys live, or join my Discord to tell me of your own. But for now, I've been Captain Daddy, and until next time, arrgh!